Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 31 of On the Flank. I'm one of your hosts, John George, alongside Joe Kirkpatrick. Say hello, Joe.
Hey there, buddy.
And Joe, we come here after a hell of a Stage 1 finals, right? A
Absolutely.
fantastic one. Yeah, some people calling it the best series in Overwatch history, which is crazy. Crazy talk, if you ask me. There's so many matches at this point. But best match in Overwatch League? Possibly, honestly.
I
Definitely
mean,
better than last year's finals.
I was just about to say, certainly better than really London.
Yeah. But before we get to the finals, Joe, let's just jump right into the Stage 1 playoffs in general because the first game we already have something that's super shocking, maybe not super shocking to some people. I don't know. The New York Excelsior, a team 7-0, looking fantastic, looking unbeatable, continue to choke in the playoffs as they lose to the Seoul Dynasty 3-1. I don't think anyone expected this. I don't think Seoul expected this. Like interviews with like Fissure after the game, Fissure's like basically saying that he didn't expect it at all, and that they, I don't know, it did not seem like Seoul cared about this game going into it, especially after after their tiebreaker with San Francisco, where they decided to throw in all their bench players, and they kind of mentioned, no, I just want to give our players a break, and it seemed like they didn't really even care about the stage playoffs too much. Joe, how did they win? How did they beat the New York Excelsior?
Yeah, I was really surprised. I mean, you talk about, New York's gonna choke in the playoffs, but this looked like worse than a choke. Like, like I wouldn't have described it as they were just playing like really not well. With, I mean, basically no explanation. I mean, yeah, it was just a weird series. I mean, it was a
Yeah,
cool series,
they
but it was a
got they
weird
got
series.
yeah, they got closer for sure. The last two maps, they looked like they were a little bit more in it. I thought the reverse sweep might happen, but um, yeah, they definitely choked. That was, I don't know what is wrong. I got a tweet from the esports writer that said that was like some ridiculous. They're like New York excels like 41-6 in regular season games, but in stage playoffs and season playoffs combined, they're 4-5. And they're currently on a 4-game losing streak in playoffs. Yeah, that's that's just ridiculous because it's when it comes to being an analyst and a fan, it's like night and day what your feelings are about the NYXL during like the regular season or the regular part of the stage. They're dominant. They're the best team by far. They look so good, so clean. And then you go to stage playoffs or you go to regular season playoffs, and this team looks awful. They look completely different and nervous, and there's definitely a curse there, Joe. Will they ever break it? Is the question.
I mean, hopefully we'll find out. I mean, at this point in the season,
Yeah, I mean,
if
I
they've
did.
got some time yet to turn it around.
Um,
But which is to even have to say that to a team that went undefeated in stage one is
I
is
know
just
exactly.
interesting.
Exactly. They could go undefeated. Like they could go undefeated overall the entire season, but I would still predict them to lose in the first round of the playoffs every single stage, Joe. That's what I'm going with from now on. But yeah, the second match of the day, towards more expectations. Vancouver Titans 3-0ing Boston Uprising. Um, I kind of mentioned this in my predictions. I think that Boston, it's pretty awesome that they made stage playoffs, but beating Vancouver was something I doubted they could do, and I think I was correct here. They looked okay, and I think Vancouver is, now that we know Vancouver's dominant. Um, they looked okay, right, Joe? All things considered, this was a fantastic stage one, compared to expectations, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's just partly just a factor of maybe who they played or how they played, having weird roster stuff going on too. But yeah, it's gonna get more and more of a clearer picture, I think, as we keep going.
Hmm.
Obviously through the season, but yeah, it's definitely promising stuff.
Yeah, making stage playoffs for them was a fantastic achievement. Then we head to Friday. This was like the one game me and Joe differentiated on our playoff bracket. I guess we should mention our playoff bracket. A little bit of a flub we had, Joe. Um, we completely forgot about the reseeding after the second round. We treated it like a normal bracket. So uh, we at first we posted our bracket. And Joe had realized, oh, I did the seeds wrong because what was it? You
Wait,
just
I
had
had Philly's match and Toronto's match I had on the wrong side of the bracket that didn't exist,
yeah.
and so I'm like, well, I better fix that.
And then you fixed it, and then we got a reply from Totally Drunk, a friend of the podcast. Thank you for the reply, reminding us of reseeding. And it just so happened that when we took reseeding into account, our very first bracket where we were didn't take reseeding into account, and we also completely got the seeds wrong if it was a normal bracket. Turns out we were completely right with that bracket. It was a perfect graphic. So
Sort
I
of.
guess
Which
I
was
guess
sort of a perfect graphic.
it's a perfect bracket, Joe.
Yeah.
And
Did anybody
we
have a perfect bracket for these playoffs? That's the real
yeah,
question.
true. It's way more likely. So yeah, that was our little little playoff mix up. If you saw it go down on Twitter, we posted many brackets. We finally had the right one. But this next game was the one first round game, I believe, Joe, where we differentiated because I picked the Atlanta Reign and you picked the Philadelphia Fusion, and you were correct. You were absolutely correct. And this was the second time this stage Philadelphia Fusion has beaten Atlanta Reign, and I think this one was a little bit more dominant fashion. It went to 5 maps last time. This one only 4. Philadelphia, of course, keeping it close in each map, but looking like the better team, right?
Yeah, and even after Atlanta pulled out Ilios there on the first map, but yeah, it's unfortunately not a foreshadowing necessarily of the next round for Philly, but yeah, pulled off some really nice plays coming through Kings Row, Volskaya, and Route 66. Then were the other maps. Um, yeah, they look nice. Atlanta. Um, having been there, having made it to finals, it's sort of to an extent like we were talking about for Boston. That it's a great step for them, definitely for stage one. I'm sure they're really satisfied with that. I don't know if you saw the clip. DeFran went on stream like immediately afterwards, and he was talking about, well, you know what my problem was, that the second half of this match I got hungry. And that's why he didn't play well, is
Oh,
because he got hungry, like around Volsky.
yeah. Okay. Okay, I could see
So
that.
that's
Yeah.
the official explanation.
They,
But
at halftime,
and,
they should have fed him.
yeah, that's what people were saying. They're just like, oh, Atlanta's expansion team. They've never done this before. They've got they've got to remember to feed their
Yeah, I
players.
guess so.
Anyway, but yeah, it was really good. I know Poco had a really good series on the Diva in particular, but yeah, Philly playing like the better team this quarterfinal round.
Oh yeah, definitely. Atlanta, another team though. and just like maybe the next losing team, Toronto. Both these teams, expansion teams, that should be proud that they're here in the Stage 1 playoffs. That's pretty impressive. Toronto got 3-0'd by San Francisco Shock. It was a nice clean sweep. Do you have anything you want to talk about with this game? I expected it to be sort of a clean sweep.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Twitch VOD was like just over an hour for the entire match, which was
Yeah.
notable. But yeah, no, it was like, super surprised, not really. Um, like for Toronto to pick up a number 3 seed, I guess they had. I was pretty surprised about, or maybe they were 4, whatever, tied for third. I was pretty surprised. I'm not quite sure they're playing to that level yet. And obviously we saw Shock just sort of destroyed them, but that's not to say, and not to say that they're not, a good team, but definitely not, definitely didn't show up to this series, definitely not on San Francisco's level, at least, in this stage 1, because we're talking about stage 2 is going to be completely different, probably,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, it was not super entertaining, if only because it wasn't very close.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that Toronto is not the third best team in the Overwatch League.
Oh
I
yeah.
think it's safe to say that. But yeah, they got a little bit clean swept. I think they had an easier schedule this stage though. Toronto did. Um, so that's why they went 5-2, right? Which is a great
Yeah.
record. That's when you could say your team's 5-2. That's nice. Um, but yeah, they lost to San Francisco. I think everyone expected them to lose. Um, I wonder how this would have went though if Atlanta ended up playing Toronto instead.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. They went 5-2 with like a mid-table schedule, actually. Only the 12th hardest in the league by win percentage.
Hmm. Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Toronto.
Um.
It's Toronto. You gotta.
Yeah. If you're comparing it to the NBA team, the NBA team always looks really good in the regular season and then loses in the playoffs. So they're the NYXL of the NBA almost.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's how
Um.
to do it.
Then we move on to Saturday. We got some 4 Overwatch all day. Soul Dynasty looking like they were out to prove that NYXL did choke, and they are not actually good. Getting forward by by Vancouver, and not looking too good while doing it. I mean, Bumper just I think sort of bodied Fisher this game, if you ask me. Um, yeah, these Vancouver guys are good. Uh, I mean, going into it, I think to mention the Fisher interview again, I think even Fisher said their team is better at goats. We're
We're,
screwed,
we're
kind
gonna
of.
lose the next round. Yeah.
Literally saying we're gonna lose. I don't. We're not gonna
You-
win.
There's not much clearer than that you can get.
Yeah. Um.
But yeah, definitely. Soul outperforming what everybody thought they were going to.
Oh yeah.
Um, that's definitely a good sign for them. And once they'll be able to, I think part of the quote unquote issue with this stage 1 meta is just how like inflexible it is, and so once we get teams like, Chengdu's a great example, but even like Seoul, they're going to be able to have a little bit more flexibility. Hopefully, in stage 2 is going to be really, we'll actually be able to see what kinds of things they can actually do.
Yeah. I completely agree with you there. And I think Soul's got the talent. Clearly, we saw it here in Goats meta, and I agree with you. I don't think Goats is even necessarily like their strongest type because they're a Somber Goats team. And as we know, the Somber Goats teams get easily figured out in the end of everything. Dallas Fuel teams like that. So Somber Goats, it's fun, but it's not. I think it's clearly the inferior type of goats, and Soul was a Somber Goats team. So I think once we get to a new meta, I think Soul will benefit for sure, and I think this is a good sign for Soul Dynasty fans who, I mean, this was their shining moment because they're finally here in stage playoffs. for the first time ever, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, for both
Uh,
teams.
Yeah, true. So this is just a big moment for Seoul Dynasty in general. Because last year they weren't that good. Maybe they'll actually be good this year. That'd be fantastic because that's the only Korean team in this league. So
Yeah.
um, we would love some Korean fans to love their team, and hopefully it's good. San Francisco Shock, Philadelphia Fusion, another 4-0. Another 4-0. And Philadelphia kind of getting shut down on Ilios 2-0, Hollywood 3-0, Rialto 3-0, and even Volskaya 4-2 in that second go around, getting completely shut down in a 2-0 fashion there, but 4-2 overall. Joe, as a Philadelphia Fusion fan, what went
It,
wrong?
it was not fun to watch.
No.
That's for sure. But yeah, no. Looking back at because I watched the series and then I also watched that Jane did live stream through every playoff game, and
Hmm.
so those are on YouTube. You can actually go look at those. But he was watching this too, and his joke was falling back to Elk was the problem the whole time, and so
Yes.
there would be some misplay, and he'd be like, Elk, why are you throwing? But but yeah, it was not a great series for Philly, and and I don't know. I think it's definitely fair to say that it's not all because they were playing poorly. That as we saw in the finals, San Francisco really showed up to these playoffs, and being the only team to, I guess not the only team, but one of the only teams here in the league that's been able to stand up to Vancouver at all, um, and really showing what they're made of, and a 4-0 over Philly, as disappointing as that was, might have been to me, but definitely necessary to show up. I think for San Francisco.
Yeah. San Francisco looking really good. Moving on to face Vancouver on Sunday. I just feel bad for everyone who got tickets to Saturday's games, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna get some great matches today. Fissure versus Bumper, Fusion. They're the giant killers. They love making stage finals, and then they come there and it's just 4-0, 4-0, dominant fashion. That's a boring day of Overwatch for you."
Yeah.
Um, Hopefully they got tickets to Sun. Nate Nantzer should have just been at the door at the end of that day, handing out tickets to Sunday. Like, I am so sorry. Here you go. Come back tomorrow, please. But yeah, the next day, everything ever there were no like map fives in round one. There were no going to game seven. There were no map fives in round two either, even though it was best of seven. But then all that sacrifice, all those 3-1s, 3-0s, 4-0s were sacrificed in order for us to get an insane series, Joe, on Sunday on national television, ABC. The San Francisco Shock and the Vancouver Titans gave us a series for the ages, and they just kept trading off back and forth. It went San Francisco winning map one on Nepal 2-1, Umbani 1-0 Vancouver, and then Temple over to Shock, Dorado over to Titans, Ilios over to Shock, then Titans on Kings Row, and then you'd expect Shock if this was a pattern, but Titans ended up winning the last map 4-3. There's so much to dive into because both of these teams looked absolutely insane. And this was the highest level of Overwatch we saw all season. There's no doubt in my mind there. God, this game was so much fun. I was entertained the entire time. My girlfriend was very upset because she didn't get to be with me, and I was obsessed with this game um, on that fateful Sunday. Joe, let's talk about San Francisco first because they lost. So
It did.
maybe maybe people are gonna forget about them more. But Joe, do they deserve to be forgotten here because they looked really good and probably the best contender against Vancouver this season? Despite, I mean, you had Guangzhou and Chengdu, of course, taking them to 5 maps, but I think San Francisco looked even better and looked like they were figuring out Vancouver's weaknesses a little better too.
Absolutely, yeah, I'd say so. I mean, even um, map six, Shock was on match point. That could have easily gone the other way there at Kings Row. And even though map seven, when we went to Rialto, brought us Vancouver shattering their previous world record of Rialto
Mm-hmm.
completion by like a minute. Um, Even though that was people like, oh, Vancouver just decided, okay, fine, we actually have to win this now, and flipped whatever switch and decided to play well. But no, I think um, it was a really close series. It was a really exciting series, and yeah, San Francisco just played their hearts out. I mean, both teams did. They saw after like after map five or something, I think it was that they did. They mentioned on stream, Sinatra was just saying, "I just want to win so we can go home," because it was just a long series, and it was draining, for both teams. And when you get to that, and you can hold out what was at that point a 9-0 Vancouver team, the only undefeated team left in the league so far. That's really super notable. Um,
You
yeah.
see, you say that, Joe, but we go back to we go back to stage two here, and we take a look at the standings, and New York XL is magically still undefeated.
It's true. It's true.
We'll talk about that in a second, actually, where I want to go over stage one and what we liked and what we didn't. But Vancouver looking super good. I gotta give credit to them on Rialto. I remember thinking back to the Rialto game that happened Saturday against Seoul, where they did let up 3 points against Seoul as well on Rialto on defense, and then just like it was a very odd Rialto game because people don't often finish Rialto. So when Seoul finished Rialto, it was like, oh, they're gonna win this map, and Vancouver Titans. They also beat a world record on Saturday, as you mentioned, Joe, on Rialto, um, and just ran it down that map almost perfectly, and ended up winning the Rialto map. So when San Francisco Shock got 3 points on Rialto on Sunday, I was like, is Vancouver about to do that again? Like, it seems like their Rialto defense is kind of subpar, and then their Rialto offense is the best in the league and the best in the world by far. And I think they definitely proved that with their world record run, just straight down that map. And once they did that, almost perfectly, just steamrolled them. Like I don't think anyone doubted that they were going to win this map at that point. They had such a time bank advantage, and ended up just winning it. And it got close. It got down to like a minute, I think, but it was interesting. I was thinking to myself the day someone ties on payload is the day we have the greatest match of Overwatch of all time, Joe.
It's
Because that,
possible.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
possible.
If you get just as close to finishing as you possibly can, you tie on payload because you have the same number, you have the same distance.
Yeah.
That would be
Ooh,
that is
or
the,
for most payload maps, if you just get stopped at the completion point, like on point A or on point B, it'll
uh,
do that too. Because for most payload maps, the cart stops briefly.
true.
So yeah, that's the other way to tie.
That's probably the best chance we either right before you finish the point or something, or that's probably the best. That's gonna be like I was just imagining like if they tied Rialto here and we had to go to a map 8, how insane that would have been.
Yeah.
The
But
crowd
yeah,
would be
like
going.
Dorado B, I know the cart doesn't stop when you hit the point, so that's I think an exception though, rather than the rule for most escort
Yeah,
points.
yeah. they're all over. There's some points that move, some points that don't. It's all over the place, depending map to map.
Yeah.
But yeah, we talked about San Francisco Shock. I think they really outperformed themselves, and I think they really they had some ups and downs at the beginning of the stage, and then right now they look really, really good and like a top tier team. They're finally reaching that peak level here, even though they lost this game. On the other side, Vancouver Titans. I think we have to go. I think we have to like give this team credit because they. I don't know. They sort of proved that expansion teams you don't mess with them, and almost prove. I mean, some people say, hey, maybe this runaway roster could have beaten teams in Overwatch League last year at this time. To that I say probably not. It's just goats. Like if Runaway was playing in the metas that the Overwatch League was playing in, they probably would have lost. But I think it was just the fact that Runaway is practicing goats has played a 7 map series against. Why can't I remember who they played against right now? Against
Conduit Pantera?
Yeah, Kungdu Panthera.
Yeah.
Played a 7 map series of goats against Kungdu Panthera to win. They've played a crazy amount of goats compared to Overwatch League teams. So they've got the experience. They went in saying, "Hey, we've been playing this meta for like 7 months
Yeah.
in the off season and towards the end of their last season. So they're totally came into this stage knowing what they were ready for, and they also, I mean, this team's awesome. As a Runaway fan, I love this team so much.
Still undefeated
Yeah.
from Kurt contenders all the way to now.
Oh, crazy stuff. I mean, you gotta give these guys so much credit. And I don't know how well they're gonna do next stage with meta changes, and that's gonna be the big question going into stage 2. But you gotta give them credit for stage 1 and looking absolutely dominant in Goats meta, and I think proving to the league that they're the best Goats team, and using sort of Bumper in a way that NYXL uses Jonak, putting all the support on Jonak. They put all their support on Bumper, and they let him go wild as a Reinhardt. Joe, as a Reinhardt player, do you wish your team would support you like like Vancouver does to Bumper?
I mean, you certainly make bigger plays, that's for sure. But yeah, Bumper and Super. That was a matchup. Almost we didn't know we needed until it happened.
Yeah, you can't not mention Super, and you can't not mention like Sinatra, who I would say was the best Zarya in stage 1. He was fantastic, and both Super and Sinatra were sort of the kids that just turned 18. They were the guys that came in the middle of the season last year, and now they're here as 2 of the best players in the league, and both Americans, may I say, Joe.
It's
America.
True. Yeah. There's Mr. 150K and also Super.
And the thing is, Sinatra's like still like one of the only public salaries, so he's like, everyone's like, that guy makes the most money. He must. That's all we know.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was a fantastic series, Joe. It was amazing. I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. You should go back and look at it.
Yeah. Speaking of, that's my one game for you to rewatch, and I think it's obvious that you should rewatch this one. Joe, if it weren't this one, which one would you go and rewatch?
Yeah, so other than the finals, my pick to rewatch the series is all the way back in the first round, the Seoul New York game, actually. Not because maybe if you're a New York fan, you don't want to watch that one, but just in general, they played 4 maps, and all 4 maps had something special on there. It's been like a week since they played it, so I don't know if I could come up with it all off the top of my head, but Ilios that Seoul rolled out on this lineup that no one, even in the production, knew what to think of. Um, and their second map that they played, which was I don't know, Kings Row probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
This
Um,
is the second map, and then they played Volskaya and ended on wait for it, Rialto, I think. You see, this is great. But they played four maps. All four maps were really cool, and ended entertainingly. And it was an entertaining series, unless you're a New York fan. So you should go back and look at it.
Once again, New York fans, don't watch it. You will cry.
Yeah,
MVP of the playoffs, Joe. I went with. I think it was an obvious one because he was definitely the MVP of the finals. Haxall, who went on a tear. Apparently, according to other Vancouver Titans team members, once San Francisco was putting up a good fight, Haxall's usually pretty quiet, but he just started talking in team comps, and he really, really wanted to win. Um, and yeah, Haxel just looked fantastic on Brigida. I think someone on Reddit mentioned like I didn't know you could look like you were super skilled at Brigida, but he did. Um, yeah, Haxel completely deserved it. I think overall Bumper's probably the best player of the stage, but definitely during the playoffs, Haxel stepped it up a bit, and he really really wanted to prove Runaway and Vancouver Titans best team this stage.
yeah. And then my pick, similar sort of thing, also from a finals team, but in this case, I'm gonna pick Moth from San Francisco Shock as my playoffs MVP. Just because, particularly in this last series, just the amazing Lucio play he brought in for his team, enabling uh, so many other big moments that we think of from that series and again for the rest of the series, because of just strategic boops and good positioning, and just being conscious of the things that needed to happen there for his team. And yeah, Moth really being able to pull that out was really cool to watch. Especially if you're a support player, you could learn a
Hmm.
thing or two from him, I'm sure.
Everyone on San Francisco really stepped up, including Moth. San Francisco should be everyone's MVP of the playoffs for giving us an amazing series. But yeah, that was stage one playoffs, stage one finals. Stage one is completely over now. We're in a little bit of a week break here, Joe.
It's
We
true.
don't have Overwatch. That's why this episode's coming out late, by the way. Is we had more time, so we got lazy, right, Joe? We got a bit lazy, and specifically, I had a lot of I had a flight, a very early flight. I needed some rest, but I'm here. I'm well rested,
There
and I'm
you
ready
go.
to talk. I mentioned this last week, but I just want to talk about the stage in general. Ask you some thoughts and feelings on format stuff because the stage is over now. I think there was some discussion, Joe, towards the end of the stage, sort of about um, stage stage playoffs with the 7 game stage schedule. I think Flame was the main person who was sort of bringing up arguments about like reseeding and all this stuff. Um, but I personally have never been the biggest fan of stage playoffs, which is ridiculous to say after we got that absolutely fantastic match. Um, but I think the rest of we'll always see a good match in the finals with this format, but I don't know if we'll always see good first round matches and good semifinals with this format currently because I don't know if these were the 8 teams, the best 8 teams, right? Because some teams had very hard schedules and could not make it. Some teams had very easy schedules and made it because of it. So I don't think these were the best 8 teams we could have had. I don't think these were the best matchups we could have had. And I mean, Joe, where do you see stage playoffs going specifically for next season? When everyone's gonna have to travel, are they even gonna have them? Are they gonna make teams like travel to somewhere to do this stage playoffs thing that's only for money, doesn't even matter towards the season standings. Um, where do you
Y-
see this going?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they take the time to change, some other aspect of the league to make them count in some way. That's an option. Maybe by next season, if they're also traveling, we have concurrent games. I would, sort of doubt that, but I suppose it's possible that they add concurrent games, and so therefore you can have some more games and some more data while you're looking to come up with playoff teams. That can be something. But yeah, there definitely is something lacking. It feels like about this 7 game, um, eight player sort of playoff bracket. Um, Especially when you have 17 out of your 20 teams have at least 3 wins, and something like 12 or more have 3 or 4 wins um, in the stage. There's not tons of stuff you can do with that would seem ultimately fair. And like you said, like we actually have the best 8 teams there. Um, yeah, as far as what to do with that is, it's hard to say. If we do get more data, if they change the format, maybe they somehow make either more significance on the qualification or the being in the playoffs themselves. But hopefully as the season goes on, um, it'll start to make a little bit more sense. After we have a stage's worth of data now, in addition to whatever shakes down in stage two, that things might be able to start making a little more sense, or they can, even if they don't make sense, we can at least follow them a little better, maybe than this stage did. But yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know. It's a weird. Well, it's not a weird experience. It's a less than ideal experience.
yeah. It is. I mean, because Flame mentioned the reseeding's kind of weird, just because the seeding almost doesn't make sense. Because and we could see that San Francisco Shock being like the sixth seed, and clearly being the second best team, if not NYXL, the second best overall team in this stage playoffs. But yeah, it's kind of weird when you only have 7 games because you're not playing everyone in the league. It made sense. It made a lot more sense last year because you were playing almost everybody in each stage. But I think I don't know. I've always had a love hate relationship with stage playoffs. I they're fun, and they let teams continue to compete, and they make sure that teams aren't sort of aren't giving up because they want to play for the money. But there are some situations, like I think Seoul Dynasty, this stage, even, like, it didn't seem like they cared too much about this. There's some teams that I think would rather have a week break and have a little bit more of a bye week going into stage two, have a little bit more time to prepare. Like, there were 8 teams here last weekend, but there were 12 teams that got to, well, they were either taking a big break or they were playing on this new patch that we're going to see in stage two, while all these teams had to play the goats patch for a little bit longer, which maybe is a little bit of an advantage for the teams that got a break. And while playing for money is nice, some teams just really want to win the entire league, and if that takes having a break, or if that takes studying up, practicing more, then some teams would rather have that and would rather not fatigue their players out. So, stage playoffs, love-hate relationship over here. We've gotten some great games out of it. In the end, they only matter for money. And you could call Vancouver the only true undefeated team left, but at the end of the day, if you look at the standings, NYXL is still undefeated. You can't call them. You can't call them like. You can't call them.
Bad now.
You can't call them like 7-1. They're 7-0. It says it on the standings that NYXL was not playing towards their season record there. So it doesn't. I say this because the desk was calling them, calling Vancouver the only undefeated team left in the league, and that's just not true. Because these games do not count towards your record. New York XL knew that going into the playoffs. They were not playing for their perfect record. So, yeah, for the people trying to push stage playoffs as like a counting towards standings, you are just making things more confusing. It's funny because the desk is in Overwatch League is mainly there to make things super simplistic for casual viewers, and then they come out and say things like that because now you're going to confuse the heck out of maybe viewers who don't know that stage playoffs don't count towards their record. They're going to be like, why is an Overwatch League website updating their standings? NYXL is not undefeated anymore. They are undefeated. They are.
It's true.
Any other things to talk about stage one? Overall, it was a very entertaining stage. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah, it worked out well. I mean, hopefully, we've talked about stage two is going to be a little bit more varied, give some teams a little bit more flexibility to like show off what they're good at, rather than what they need to be good at. But yeah, it's gonna be a good stage. It's gonna be a good stage.
Mm-hmm. I'm very excited. And in stage two, we get our first away match homestand in Dallas. I am so excited. Week 4, that's April 27th and April 28th. That's like a month, exactly a month from now. I'm excited.
It's true.
Yeah, and we got a new patch. I'm super excited. But let's move into the news, Joe. You have added something to our rundown that has recently occurred on the competitive Overwatch subreddit, and that is in contenders. They have hero switches on the top left corner for when people switch switch out into different character or different hero. They now have sort of a scoreboard or a tracker telling us when that happens, which is
like the kill feed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the kill feed. Which I think everyone's assuming this is going to go into Overwatch League eventually. That's pretty good quality of life change, right, Joe?
Yeah, it makes me wonder, how they added that. Because it's not like they're playing on a PTR patch or something that nobody's just noticed that yet. So they must have intentionally added that somehow on the patch that they're playing, which, if I had to guess, is probably 1.34.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, or maybe even older than that. But yeah, it looks super cool. They'll have to change some UI things, I think, because it looks a little bit weird. But the idea is awesome. It's gonna be really good to be able to follow that up, and be not to clearly see that, but to have that called out too is gonna be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Some graphic things people mentioning, because it's like one arrow pointing towards one hero and another arrow pointing towards the other hero. It doesn't make too much sense. But yeah, that's definitely very helpful, especially for casual viewers who might not be looking sort of at the top, or depending on sort of one of the casters saying, "Oh, they made this switch." It's very nice to have it there. All-Star Weekend. You can vote. They have announced details on the All-Star Weekend. It's going to start off Wednesday, May 15th, with a series of custom games, which is sort of the skills competition, if you're a traditional sports fan. And then Thursday, May 16th, is the actual All-Star game itself. It's going to be on ESPN2 on Wednesday, and then ESPN News on Thursday. Of course, on Twitch, OverwatchLeague.com, MLG.com, all of that. And you can vote right now. You on the Overwatch League website, just sign in with your Battle.net. You vote for 6 players, 2 DPS, 2 tank, 2 support for the Pacific and for the Atlantic. And yeah, it goes towards the vote, and whoever wins gets to play in that game. Um, they have a leaderboard right now, Joe.
They
Have
do.
you voted yet?
I
Are
have
you gonna? When does voting close? Does it say?
in 31 days, so you've got an entire month
Oh,
still.
yes.
End of
I feel
April.
like I should. I feel like I should. I feel like everyone's voting now, but I feel like I'm going to save my vote for at the end of stage two because we only have one stage of stuff here. Specifically for DPS players, I want to like wait until they can actually play their DPS heroes to vote. Have you voted yet, Joe?
I have, yeah. It
Um,
doesn't let you go back and look specifically what you voted for, but I mean, as I recall, it was relatively standard. I think like currently the leaders for the Atlantic Division, Jonak and Arc for support, Defran and Carpe for DPS, and Fusions and Poco for the tank line. Um, and Pacific Division, we're looking at Jaehong and Yveltal for support, Jinmu and Fleta for DPS, and Gushue and Ameng for tanks. So yeah, three
the
Chengdu Hunters
Chengdu
players,
fan,
which is interesting.
Chengdu
But
fans coming out.
evidently, yeah. Um, so yeah, they said the six for each division that get voted will make the team, as well as I think 12 additional for each division, for a total of 18.
Okay. Um, yeah. Where are the Vancouver Titans players? I think that's the big question right now because they're definitely Bumper's probably the best tank player in the league right now. You have a bunch of players that on that team that maybe deserve to be on that Pacific Division.
Yes, several were there when I voted, but
Same here. Or
but
well,
but
when I
but
first looked at it,
oh yeah,
not voted.
but by now they've been removed or they've been passed. So
The Chengdu fans really coming out hard for their team, and not to say they don't deserve some recognition. They've got some very talented players on their team.
yeah,
Um,
we've seen
you have
that.
you have four Chinese. Would you, if I told you there are going to be four Chinese players on the All Star team last year, would you have believed me?
I wouldn't have known who they were, that's for sure.
The
Because I
Shanghai Dragons
yeah,
got more
yeah,
Chinese players.
yeah, I was gonna say I wouldn't have guessed it was gonna be Shanghai players, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty. That is pretty crazy. Four Chinese players on the All Star roster currently. Um, yeah, I think that I don't know if it stays the same here. I think people should. You can only vote once, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So people, in my opinion, people should save their vote until the last second because we're gonna get some high level play here in stage two, specifically DPS wise. Um, but yeah, if Jonak, Carpet, these are all fan favorites to be sure. Rio Jaehong, who in my opinion is one of the weaker flex support players in the league, super popular, obviously. And I'm actually wondering if it's just the fact that there are so many Chinese Overwatch fans. I'm wondering if that's the reason.
I mean, I would assume so. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's just online voting. I mean,
I should have noticed. I should have realized that before. But yeah,
I mean, because it's a thing, right? That like Chinese internet voting is very popular or something. I don't know.
it's a that's one of their stereotypes.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what they were
It's
saying for MVP voting last year, right? Or am I
yeah,
wrong? Uh,
yeah. You're right. Um,
I forget who they were voting for, but
but those Chinese fans, they come out strong when there's a vote.
absolutely.
Um, they love democracy more than anybody, even though they're not democratic. They would love voting. There's no doubt
There you
about
go.
that. Uh, Jane. So this was this kind of a leak?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
this was on stream. If you haven't played the clip, he just says, like he decides he's going to talk about it. He's like, okay, well, this might be a leak, but I'm going to say it anyway. That that he's pretty convinced that the Overwatch League teams will have a replay viewer um, even by stage two, which hopefully then will be made public by stage three. That's the thing.
Okay. So for the fans, we will get a viewer stage 3, and they will get one stage 2, which is fantastic. That's definitely going to be the best way to watch replays for coaches and for, I think I mentioned it on this podcast. If you, I mean, that was a while ago. If you haven't listened, I don't blame you guys. But I mentioned, I think that tool is most fantastic for coaches and for analysts and for the players themselves, who get to go back, and will be the best way to watch your replays by far, and strategize and look at what you did wrong, which is going to be really good for the skill cap and the skill level of the league. Everyone's skill level will go up all of a sudden because of that, and we'll get maybe some more fancy plays and stuff like that. But of course, it's awesome for the fans as well to go in there and get the best angle, the best view possible. And you can no longer spam tours in the Twitch chat, because it will be completely your fault if you miss
It's true.
something. Yes. Hopefully they've made some fixes though, since Overwatch World Cup added casters and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, it's true. At least that's the
Um,
goal. Yeah, so obviously nothing officially announced yet, but that's according to Jane, he's pretty confident that like 5 days ago he said that's probably coming. So that's
okay.
cool.
Super confident. Maybe they're gonna fine him for leaking that. Um, slap him with an old fine.
Yeah,
But
who
yeah,
knows?
we move on to probably my favorite piece of news this week. Philadelphia Fusion announced their Fusion Arena. They're flexing their Comcast money, Joe, with what looks like the most futuristic, beautiful arena. It reminds me a lot of, being from Detroit, the sort of mock-ups of Little Caesars Arena when it first came out. Um, it did not look as good as the mock-ups in the end, but it looks really cool, for what we've got here. It's like a sleek black and orange too. Like, it looks so nice on the outside if you take a look at it. This is a great piece of news, by the way, for an audio form
It's true.
podcast.
It's true.
I would love to have some video here, but Joe, as a Fusion fan, I think it's time for you to move to Philadelphia, and
Clearly.
almost, yeah, almost live in this arena if you can. If or get an apartment right next to it. It's time, Joe.
I guess, yeah. But yeah, they said 3,500 seats, $50 million of construction. It's looking really nice. So they've got a video. Was probably they've posted several things by now, but we're both looking at a video that they posted. It's gonna be good. Um, hopefully, apparently it's not supposed to come out until like 2021 or early 2021, so it'll be a little bit late for season two. But
Or season
it's
three.
or season three, yeah. Yes, it'll also be late for season two.
Yes, it will be. Yeah, you were saying a true statement.
But yeah, it's gonna be real cool. And if lots of other teams, ideally are able to pick up that same sort of thing, it's gonna be real cool.
Yeah. I really hope that this stadium fills up, because it looks super cool. It's definitely bigger. It has more seats than Blizzard Arena, and we know that doesn't fill up all the time. Um, but that's because Sometimes it's on Thursdays. Sometimes it's on work days. Sometimes there's some terrible games that Los Angeles people just don't care about. They mainly care about the LA teams. So, maybe we'll see the Philly fans come out strong, and there will definitely be less games played in this arena too. Um, what else? They're gonna practice in there, and I think the location's fantastic, because in Philadelphia they have sort of all their sports arenas together, and the Philadelphia Fusion will be joining, the Phillies, the Flyers, the 76ers, and the Eagles, all in that area. Um, they are sports now, Joe. They are sports.
They are sports. We all are sports.
We are Sports. Um, yeah, I would. That just I don't know why it reminded me of EA Sports. Every time I mention esports to a family member, of course they're like, "What is EA Sport? What you're working for EA Sports?"
Yeah, something
But
like
yeah, that's a lot of topic. I feel like we always have a piece of news like that after like a big win. It always comes out like, "Wow, they won, and this was happening the whole time." And in this situation, wow, Vancouver won, and Sealman Sue had a broken thumb the whole time.
it's just crazy.
That is crazy. I'm on my mouse right now, and I'm wondering what my thumb would be doing. My thumb would be I have melee bound to one of my mouse keys, so I probably have to like unbind because that's the only thing my thumb does is melee people.
And it depends on which thumb it was too, whether it
Oh
was
yeah, true.
his left thumb or his right thumb.
If it's my left, that's my jump button, and
Yeah.
that's not good.
Yeah, if you try to move your mouse with four fingers, that's actually kind of difficult.
Yeah, true. But, wow, Selman Sue, MVP. Never mind, I take back Axel. This guy's amazing. Yeah, that's pretty. I like those stories. I also injuries in esports. You know, they happen. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, broken thumb. Dang. Hopefully he gets better because that can definitely affect you. Um, but yeah, maybe my analysis is going to be different now. San Francisco Shock, they're actually not too good. Vancouver was just playing down because they had a broken thumb on their Zarya, if you ask me.
Yeah, they're just trying to go to. They're intentionally going to 8 maps or 7 maps, whatever it was.
They usually do like going to 8 maps, Vancouver, but
Yeah.
this time they didn't want to. Yeah, so that's a little cool news. Joe, you're the patch man, and there was a PTR patch, so
It's
I
true.
feel like you should probably. This isn't as big as 1.34, luckily.
1.35. Eventually they'll have to go to 2, but right now it's just 1.35. Um, Several changes here, starting with Junkrat. Frag launcher, that's his primary fire projectile speed increased from 20 to 25. And the grenades now bounce less and explode sooner. And essentially that means that they said they've changed it so that the arc of his grenades is the same, which is kind of nice. Um, but you'll be able to aim a little bit better as your projectiles are a little bit faster. Um, and they'll hang around a little bit less, which will make it a little bit less annoying to die to, um, general grenade spam just because they were grenades that you happened to walk into. So that's helpful. A little bit of increase to like the aim capacity for Junkrat is, I'm sure people will appreciate that, especially people who play against Junkrat. Reaper, we've basically there've been several Reaper changes here recently, and we've been saying that Shadow Step really is a weakness for Reaper. Who cares about his lifesteal? That when he has an entire ability that you can't use, that's a problem. So this is sort of attempting to fix that. Shadow Step now can be used while Reaper is in the air, especially falling, but also jumping. Time to exit Shadow Step reduced from 1 second to half a second. Reaper is now invisible for the entire time it takes to exit Shadow Step, and Reaper can now teleport onto surfaces that would usually break, like railings. So it's a faster motion, it's a more accessible motion. The invisibility part, I believe what I've seen from it being done is that your little ghostly tendrils, whatever, of the spot that you're teleporting to are still visible, but Reaper himself is not. And so basically that'll prevent you from being headshot like as soon as you come out of invulnerability. I assume that's what that's intended to do. But it does then obviously allow you a little bit of counterplay so that you're not just randomly actually teleporting behind people, nothing personnel kit, and Beyblading to victory. So, but yeah, so that makes there's if you've seen on Reddit, there's tons of Reaper jumps now that you can do. You know, hurl yourself off the map and shadow step around the corner where your enemies won't expect you. So that's kind of cool.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so just you know, a little bit more versatility for that ability is good. Is it going to be great? Who knows? Probably not. But it's you know, Reaper will definitely take what he can get. I think.
Yeah.
Um, that's for sure.
Any DPS hero will take what they can get.
It's true. It's true. I mean,
Yeah.
speaking of which, Symmetra's teleporter, now like Reaper's Shadow Step, can be placed on a railing or will not be blocked by a railing or other breakable objects. Similar things, so a little bit of help there, I guess.
Yeah.
The biggest buff in this patch, you can now set your victory pose choice to random.
Oh,
Uh, so
they're,
I know
they're
I'll
gonna
be,
have to nerf that. They're gonna have to nerf that for sure.
yeah, I know I will definitely be doing that because I already had my highlight intros on random. So you can also now set your career profile so that only your current group can view it, which is kind of nice. It's sort of a midway between open profiles and completely private profiles. Um, so that's kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah, hopefully
Um,
people use that. I know people don't like the private profiles, so hopefully we get now that we have an in between, maybe that'll help.
yeah. Lots of hero bug fixes, notably, if you've seen on Reddit recently, that Mei had weird interactions with her ally healing abilities that some would affect her while she was in Ice Block and some would not. With this PTR patch, now she can be healed by every single ally healing ability while she's in Ice Block. So it's really actually a buff to Mei. It's not listed as a hero change, but that is a buff for her, which is cool.
Hmm.
I think that's about some bug fixes too, which is nice.
Nice.
Um, yeah, so that's that. And then there was actually a second patch, like 2 days later, with not tons of changes, but let's see. Doomfist Seismic Slam can now target through railings, so same thing, making railings a little bit less significant. Um, for that sort of thing. Ice Wall, Teleporter, and Shadow Step from Mei, Symmetra, and Reaper are now, quote, easier to place on thin surfaces and less jittery when placing while moving around. So, I guess that's a good thing if you're a Mei or Reaper or Symmetra player. And the people who use Teleporter now will continue to look in their current viewing direction,
Hmm.
as opposed, I assume, to the direction that you are facing when you place it. I guess. I don't know. Um, but so that's a thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So small PTR patch. Not nothing like 1.34, and they'll probably be 1.36 hopefully before stage 2 comes out or before stage 3 comes out. But
Yeah.
yeah, a little bit of a Junkrat aim change, Reaper buffs,
Railing nerfs.
railing nerfs, fun stuff like that.
Railings finally got nerfed. Can't believe it.
Nerf railings.
They're so OP. Yeah. Thank you, Patch Man. Another great patch.
Hopefully, that's the
Yeah.
goal.
It's just a small one. These seem like some quality of life changes for teleport type abilities and
Yeah, for sure.
railing stuff. Um, and Junkrat buffs being like what feels like the only like stat buff kind of. But yeah, that's a nice tiny little patch. I'm sure we'll get another biggish one towards the end of stage 2, or I guess maybe I don't know. The All Star break's very long, so
Oh yeah, that's true.
that could be a different situation actually.
I forgot that existed.
Yeah, that's like a month break basically. So yeah, so they could do that towards maybe like All Star weekend, maybe around there. they'll release another patch. And knowing Blizzard, that's probably correct. It's probably going to be May when we get another big patch, knowing Blizzard. So,
And we've got
Joe,
archives coming up too at some point.
oh yes we do. Events, baby. But yeah, that's all we got for this episode. Thank you guys for listening. Next week we will be back with some preview of some Stage 2 games, but our power rankings, Joe. We haven't had power rankings since the beginning of the season, and we will be updating them. I got to. Our episode is gonna be soon now because we did it later this week. I gotta get to writing my power rankings.
Oh, that's true. I do too. I just realized. Yes, of course.
Yeah, Joe thought they would just magically be there. But yeah, there's gonna be a lot of changes because the last time we did it was at the beginning of the season. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we got, Joe.
For sure.
Yeah, and maybe we'll do a little alongside the power rankings, a little bit of a contenders pretenders type thing that I had mentioned. I wish we would have done that this week. God, I completely forgot about it. But sort of go through all the top teams, for example, Toronto Defiant, and then say, are they actually a contender or are they a pretender? Classic sports talk.
There you go.
Yes, which I think would be a nice little segment. But I'm excited for next week. We get a nice little break here in Overwatch, but we're coming back with Stage 2 and maybe the death of goats. Thank you guys for listening. If you want to follow us on our social medias, mine is at JWGeorgeIV. Joe's is at Kirkpatrick_Inc. That's INC. Our show has a Twitter account at On The Flank Show. Joe makes some great graphics for that, tweets out our brackets, tweets out our MVPs, tweets out our picks. And next week he'll be tweeting out our power rankings. And if you want to stay up to date with the show, definitely follow us on Twitter. You can tweet at us any topics you'd like us to talk about as well. You can email us on theflankshow@gmail.com if you want to do more of a long form discussion. And then you were listening to this in one way. If you want to listen to it in a different way, we're at ontheflank.podbean.com on your internet browsers. We're on my YouTube channel, which is John George. Best way to find that is go on my Twitter, because it's very hard to look up John George and find it on YouTube. If you're an iPhone user, we are on Apple Podcasts. We are on iTunes. If you're an Android user, we are on Spotify, and we are on Google Play. Thank you guys for listening. Have a nice little off week, and be ready next week for some fantastic power rankings.